Warren Macdonald here again with a Solution Revolution. This time, super excited to have a guest coming in from, I believe, Montreal, Julien Smith. Welcome, Julien.
Thanks for having me.
We like to keep the intros nice and short. But if I can kind of give my quick intro on who Julien Smith is, and then you feel free to jump in. But I first became aware of you as the author of, I believe it's New York Times best-selling Trust Agents with Chris Brogan. Another guy I've kind of been aware of for a while. And then I believe the latest book, The Flinch, has gone New York Times bestseller also. Is that true?
Well, it's definitely still a lot of copies, and it is a bestseller, but it's not on New York Times bestseller list. I still have that accolade, so I'm okay with it.
Yeah, well, exactly. You roll with it from the last one. Who needs it for everyone? Did I just say that? Maybe we do need it for everyone. But, yeah, so... I tell you, now, one of the things that jumped out, and one of the main reasons that I wanted to chat with you for the project here, is that I've been on this path where I've been all about growth. It's like I was put in this position, and it's like, what can I do with it? Where's the ceiling? How can I keep blowing through that ceiling? It's kind of like, when we talk about thinking outside of the box, I'm personally working towards that place of, what box? Let's blow the box apart.
Right.
And I figure you're on that track, but I wanted to start out with what put you on that track for this constant quest to be better?
Maybe it's that I feel that I'm a piece of garbage and I can't. I guess it's an overcompensation. No, it's what it is that I feel that I've really. As I was explaining this to my girlfriend actually just a while ago, and I was like, I have no faith in my future self. So what I do is a constant. It's a constant building up and building resilience for the time at which I'll have to make a decision I am incapable of doing. So over and over again. And so that applies to all kinds of things like meditation. It applies to sort of dealing with the flinch on a social level or in terms of work and stuff like that. So all of it has to do with kind of a hardening of character that's largely lacking in our society.
Yeah. And
definitely I started out as definitely may still be one of the weakest people I know, but I continue to write about it and be like, okay, constant process of improvement, which has more to do with being able to handle what comes at you no matter what happens. So adaptability is a big part of it too, stuff like that.
Yeah. Interesting. So the rest of us, so all of us are basically in a state of delusion about where we're at and where we're capable of, and aren't forced to look at this. Maybe that's where we're at.
I mean, the way that I sit with it is I feel like people are. I'm sincerely very optimistic about all people, and what I largely feel is that we're a body and a mind or what have you,
yeah.
but largely the shell in which we are is a very imperfect shell that we have to deal with for the entire time that we're on this planet or what have you.
Yeah.
So it has to do with overcompensating for the weaknesses. This has a lot to do with evolutionary psychology and the fact that largely the decisions we make are based on sort of short-term and our ability for our brain to kind of like just... our brain wants short-term results, and our body wants short-term results because it wants us to reproduce as fast as possible, for example. It wants us to take care of our own kin. It wants all these things that basically will help our genes reproduce, but our mind wants different things than that. And so we need to kind of adjust and almost work against our instincts in order to do well in a modern society.
Right. And our mind is constantly kind of under attack from outside interests as well.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, it's just looking over. I noticed that you put out a list of 200 books recently that you've read. And the first thing that struck me is that we've read a whole bunch of the same books. So that's
a
cool.
problem. That's a big problem, dude.
Well, it's kind of it's a problem, but one of the things that I was kind of interested. It brought up that question for me: why am I constantly reading? And is it about what we're learning, or is it about being challenged? And
I mean, Yeah, it's a good question. To me, I'm looking at it, and this guy Ryan Holiday, who's actually a pretty decent blogger, writes about probably the same stuff that you and I talk about. Yeah. And his big thing is always reading books above your level. And so, if you and I have read the same books, Warren, then we have a sincere problem. And if any of the readers or people that are watching here have the same experience, then we're all getting the same input. We're getting all the same input. We're going to end up being the same people, which is a huge, huge problem. So actually, I've been noticing that a lot. And people talk to us, be like, oh, have you read this? Of course I've read this. Of course I read this. Yeah. In order for you to have a unique output, you need to have a unique input. So it's like, now I'm getting to a point, I'm looking at these books, and there's a bunch of, social media marketing and just like garbage, And so you need to be able to get something new. And that's what I'm kind of working on now, working on totally different kinds of books than I would normally have.
Yeah. Which kind of ties into the, I love the name of the blog, by the way, the In Over Your Head. It's that, it's that quest to kind of be riding that line of being in over your head and not being too comfortable, which is interesting. It's something I've been pushing for a long time. People often ask me, well, how do I grow and move to a place where I can achieve some of these goals? And it's like, well, the first thing you better do is get really good at being uncomfortable.
Right. Mm-hmm. You need that constant process because, so my rationalization for it is this, and we discuss it in the flinch, actually, which we'll talk about shortly. Yeah. The rationalization for it is as follows, is that normally our brain has been built and has evolved to get to a point where it is meant to adapt to a non-changing environment. So 100,000 years ago or what have you, whether you're in a savanna or a jungle or elsewhere, you basically work with a limited environment that is never changing. You grow to maybe, I don't know, the age of 10 or 15 or something, and then you're like, I know everything that I need to know about this environment, and it's never going to change. Yeah. It's always going to be the same. And I know, this is also, they say things in biology like our eyes are this way and not this way because of the fact that most predators move side to side, and we can look down in order to see predators, but it's very rare that we'll look up. So we're actually not very good at looking up and down. We're more good at looking across. So our whole bodies and brains are evolved to function and help us survive and reproduce in a certain environment. That environment is not the environment we are currently in at all. Yeah. So we are deeply inadequate for for what we have built around us, this machine that we've built around us. So the people that become the most effective are those that are most adapted to the current environment. How do you do that? Well, you can't do it through changing your body, really, because your body is limited to being the species that it is. You have to change the only thing you do have that limited control over, which is your head. So that's what this process is all about, trying to figure out what the best mind is for the time that we live in so that we can have the best possible life or something.
Yeah. Yeah, the best possible experience and hopefully move us all forward. I read a friend of mine who I also interviewed for the Solution Revolution, a guy by the name of Sean Stevenson. I think it was him. I read something that he wrote yesterday, and it was I'm responsible for the future of humanity, and so are you. And I love that, because the reason that I called this the Solution Revolution was partly that the solution is kind of within all of us. We all kind of look externally, hence the reading 200 books. On some level, we all know what we need to do, but and then the revolution part is that if all of us took on this work, we would change the world overnight. I mean, I believe we would live in an entirely different place.
All right, so we have this. It's funny because I usually do a lot of talks about social networks. Because my first book, the one you talked about, was co-written with Chris Brogan, and we actually have another upcoming book which is maybe out in the fall or something. Yeah. And those books have to do with media and the sort of transforming media landscape. So it's really interesting. I end up doing talks about social networks, and one of the things that you end up realizing is like Twitter is like being psychic. And it's like having access to just a ridiculous database of information. We have access to more information than we've ever had, and we're doing so little with it, except for the few, that are. We do so little with it that is kind of pathetic. And so there needs to be a kind of transformation. If you were reborn into this space and you were born and look at it now, like if you came from a time machine or something, you'd be like, this is great. I can do what? I could do, huh? Yeah. And you would just lose your mind over how to take advantage of the environment that you live in. But the reality is, because it's come upon you slowly, just like you age slowly and you don't notice, you still think you look great, right? Even though you've got a huge beer gut or whatever. Yeah. It's happened slowly, so you don't really notice. And the same thing happened to us. We have a big problem because we're not taking advantage of the things that we have access to. We have access to all kinds of information. All the information is there. Anything you want to do, you can do, as long as you can navigate the maze that is inside your brain.
Yeah. Yeah, it's all there, and what are we doing with it? You're right. We're not fully taking advantage. So how do we push people? There's a big part of what drives you. I mean, there's this personal quest to be better, and all the rest of it. I got to admit, a big part of what drives me is I want people to get their shit together. It's interesting. We were talking about this on a panel the other day. And it was supposed to be all kind of super positive, and then I just blurted out that how embarrassing it is. A lot of times, how embarrassing it is to be a human being in 2012 when we still have so many of the problems that we have. So is that part of what drives you? Is that kind of like rallying people? Like, I know we want to learn for ourselves, but it's like, come on, let's all kind of get going here and see where we can go. Would that be fair to say that drives you? Is it
maybe, but everyone has their own little personal sort of 12-step quest or what have you that they have to take part in. Yeah. So you can't really solve that for people. And I'll tell you that for me, when I figure it out, I'll probably end up I won't write about it anymore because it won't be fascinating to me. Right. It won't be compelling to me anymore. But hopefully I've gotten to a point where I've discussed aspects of this enough times and I'll be like, I kind of figured it out. Like I figured out what it is that I'm supposed to be doing. Yeah. And I also have a sincere repulsion for like cheese and for this whole kumbaya bullshit that people talk about. And I mean, in fact, a deeply cynical person and almost like a reductionist in some ways. And so I have a big problem with the way that people deal with these things on a large sense. So I try to give people a different stance on it, where I feel like even if you don't like, this is, again, with the flinch, it's like it's people rationalizing and talking about it, saying it's not a self-help book. And it isn't, because I could never handle writing that kind of thing. It's just instead, it's a stance looking at it and going, okay, this is the best information that I have access to in order to solve this problem. I think eventually we have to get to a point where we have to stop talking about solving the internal problem and, writing the map for the maze. Yeah. And eventually we have to actually do things in the outside world. And not everyone can be like, oh, and we're going to help each other and love and let's all have beautiful internet-based businesses that are that allow us to have freedom and so on. We need to actually change the world. And I think that most people are at a point where they're too selfish to do that, so we need to really start moving and get that working as well. That's an even harder quest that's probably in the future somewhere. Yeah,
but being getting caught up more in the doing than the
right. We're getting caught up right now in the talking and in the teaching, which is what the internet is about. It's fine, we can spread a lot of information, but all the information is actually already out there. If you look into all the great questions of mankind have been answered by Marcus Aurelius and Socrates and the Buddha and so on. Why are we reiterating this for a modern audience if they are actually already solved? I'm doing the same thing. I'm asking a question. I don't have the answer to that. Yeah. But there are modern problems that have not yet been solved. Why aren't we working on those? Good question, right?
Yeah. I think we need, as humans, kind of constant reminding. I think we part of the trap we fall into is getting too comfortable, and we just need those. We need those imprints coming at us from lots of different angles,
which return you back to the state where you want to be, or what have you.
Well, it kind of and it's all about challenging us to being better. It's interesting. I'd be interested to see some of the feedback that you've had from the flinch. Because when I read it, when I kind of read the premise and then got into the book, it's like, wow, this is really gonna push some buttons. I know it pushed some of mine, especially around the interaction with people. I mean, I didn't really have any problem going and taking the cold shower, which I actually got a bit of a kick out of, because it was like, do you know what? I used to actually do this. I used to do this all the time,
right? And
I think we forget that when you do something like that, just that how it. I mean, it gives you a jolt. It's that feeling of being alive.
Sure.
There's no ducking and weaving and easing into the day. But if people,
you're right. But the brain will mold itself. It's highly plastic. It will mold itself into whatever environment you decided to put yourself in. Yeah. So if you have a discomfort around physical things like taking a cold shower, a week of that will train it out of you. And then if you stop taking it, it'll come right back. So same thing with the social encounters. If you're like, there's a number of exercises. Actually, I'm working on, I just love this idea of exercises and homework assignments for people. And I'm going to build a big sort of, I don't know, not a course because it won't cost money. It'll be free. I hate charging people for shit. But where it'll be like homework assignments every week. Go out and do this. And I naturally do these things for myself. And I love those challenges. And I have a feeling there's a large audience that also would do that too. So that'll be really interesting.
Nice. I look forward to seeing that. So what... If you had some kind of a process, because you obviously think about this a lot, and I get a lot of people that will say, well, you know, this is what I'm trying to do, and I feel stuck. What do I need to do? And it's like, well, what do you need to do? I mean, I could kind of take you through I have 3 steps, by the way. I talk a lot about acceptance, responsibility, and then connection. So if you can't accept where you're at, you've got no hope moving forward. If you can't take responsibility for the journey, you've got no hope. And if you don't have a connection or connected to a purpose, then you've got nothing to pull you forward. But do you have something similar? Like, do you have a first step that always kind of
like
that you
when
have to
somebody
use
says like, "Oh, I need help with this" or what have you?
Yeah.
I mean, so I don't know that I have a specific step like that. And in fact, in my daily life, I'm not. I mean, I do talks like you do. It's the same thing, but I don't often have. What I always try to do is I create an emotional resonance before trying to create any kind of informational thing. People do. Again, there are books everywhere that'll be like, well, first the A and then the B and then the C, or Stephen Covey will be like, first things first, and then whatever the other 7 habits are.
Right.
And it'll give you kind of a mechanism. So to me, it's actually about creating an emotion. Yeah. And then that emotion will lead to some kind of change. So based on, we talked about this. We said there's information everywhere. You don't need more information. Right. So, and the system doesn't actually matter either as long as it works for you. So to me, it's just create the emotion as powerfully as possible so that there will, I don't know about a transformative effect, but so that they'll need this kind of punch in the face realization. You'll be like, oh, I need to think about this now. Yeah. That never happens with actual information.
Right.
It happens with emotion, and so that's always the connection that I try to make. So you can't when you get questions like that, when you get them, for example, you can do that, but I cannot create an emotional connection or some kind of emotional change immediately when talking to people.
Right.
So what I do is instead I try to work through a mechanism to have them do it for themselves. And to me, the idea of a challenge is fundamental. If you're capable of taking on challenges, then you'll be able to come across unexpected challenges and deal with them well. If you're unable to take on any specific challenge, even that I give you, then you're unable probably to take on many other challenges that come your way as well. So that it's more of a stance. It's like maybe it's like a mental jujitsu or something, where the stance allows for an ultimate ability to react. Like Aikido is the art of the sphere, the art of taking energy that comes at you and returning it. Yeah. So the same thing happens with your brain. If you're capable of handling it and capable of returning it effectively, then you're doing it.
Yeah. You just reminded me of something. Because what we're really we're talking about resilience in a lot of ways. And something you made a quote. I'm just looking at it over here. That between stimulus and response, there's a space, and in that space lies our growth and freedom, and how that inspired you for the flinch. And when I read that, what I'm reading is that stimulus is one thing, and response is another. Response can be automatic, but the space is where we get to choose. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where, when we're living a life that's too comfortable and not focused on resilience, if we're always choosing the easy way out, it's where we can often set ourselves up for failure. And that's kind of what I'm trying to teach people to avoid. And I get the sense that that's kind of what you were after with the French.
I think we're aligned on that. Like that comes from Viktor Frankl from Man's Search for Meaning.
Yeah.
So he was in a concentration camp, and his thing was always that he would watch. When someone's brain decided they no longer were interested in carrying forward, and he would say immediately the body would disintegrate afterwards. So if the brain is able to continue, then the body will continue alongside it. But if the brain is unwilling to continue, then at that point the body will disintegrate like that. And that's what he saw over and over and over again. He was in Auschwitz, and I think in Birkenau, in another one. As well, and that's his experience. And of course, we never get to live through that, and thank God. But the same principles apply. Yeah,
exactly. Well, we can kind of do the work to cope with the mini crises that come our way. Or as I'm becoming more fond of saying, if a crisis doesn't exist, you better create one. Just because it's kind of part of building resilience and getting us all
right. I see what you mean.
Yeah. Well, there's the alarm. Well, I tell you what. On that note, I want to thank you for joining me and us here this morning. I want to encourage people to go out and not just read the Flinch, but take on as much of it as you can. And I got to admit, I read it on a plane, and there's kind of only so much you can do. I made sure that I took that cold shower the next chance I've got, but it's a good reminder for me to constantly be taking myself into that uncomfortable space where we all get to learn and grow. So thanks for sharing that with us, and I'm looking forward to seeing what you come up with next.
Yeah. When I have that answer, I'll let you know.
Cool.
Yeah. There's always more going on. If you go to the blog, which is inoveryourhead.net, you can follow the thought process, which will ultimately lead to the big thing. But that is a long time coming. The Flinch is probably 2 years in terms of thinking in the making. The same process has to happen again. Yeah. That's how it's working right now.
Exactly. And if we knew exactly where that was by looking at it now, it wouldn't be any fun, and there'd be no challenge in it. So unexpected for you as well as us.
Right.
Well, cool. Well, thanks for taking the time to talk to us this morning, and looking forward to staying connected and like I said, seeing where you go next.
Yeah, my pleasure. Yeah, it was a lot of fun too.
Alrighty, thank you, Julian Smith.